They have a significant, Democrats have a significant advantage, 40-19 in the Senate, 40-19. And Republicans are both voiceless and irrelevant. And Scott, they're also enjoying, in addition to being voiceless and irrelevant, they're also enjoying a pay raise.
They are.
And so, to the Illinois legislators that are listening, will you give it back? To the Republicans out there making noise, will you give it back? Because it's easy to say the Democrats voted themselves a pay raise. Okay. Our question to you is, since you benefit from it as well, will you give that back? Scott, have you heard any Republican legislators talking about giving back their pay raise?
I have not, Mark. I have not. And Mark, it's a racket because these legislators, it's technically a part-time job, so they're allowed to have other full-time employment, and most of them do. Most of them, we talked about this on the show. Most of them are lawyers. Most of them are realtors. They have something else they do that brings in money too, and it's absurd that they're going to collect. This will make them like among the highest paid state legislators in the country for a part-time gig, in which, as a Republican, they have really no point of showing up. There's no reason for them to show up in Springfield. We're so greatly outnumbered, we have no voice.
My favorite, and yes, this has been the case before about the seats in the House, but there aren't enough seats for Democrats in the Illinois House, and so Democrats are forced to sit with Republicans on the Republican side of the House. Now, Scott, this has been the case probably for a long time. It's nothing new, but still it's humiliating nonetheless.
It's been the case before. I think here's what's new. Our super minority is so incredibly small, and the Democrat super majority is so incredibly big that now it's like 2/3 or more is blue. And I guess to try to make it look a little more fair, to try to even it out a little bit, the Democrats actually considered moving some of the desks from the Republican side to the Democrat side, like physically moving the desks just so it wouldn't be so disproportionate. And that's what's new. They've never had to contemplate moving desks. As it turns out, they're not moving the desks because there's nowhere to put them. There's so many desks they'd have to move over, like 11 desks they'd have to move over. There's no place to put them.
It really is unbelievable. And so that's why this story, Illinois Democratic State Senator introduces a bill to allow illegal aliens to vote where? In school board elections. Scott, what's sort of the legal, and it's interesting, what sort of the legal justification is this state senator, Selena Villanueva, what's their sort of legal reasoning or justification to allow illegal aliens to vote in school board races? It's really interesting.
Well, I think whenever they do this, and we've seen this play out in other places across the country where where Democrats are trying to allow illegal aliens to vote in elections, and they usually base it on some sort of hey, I mean, they're part of the community too, and they should have a voice, and never mind that the Constitution, in most of these states, in Illinois certainly, it doesn't say that anyone can vote, right? It's qualified voters. So, it's silly. It's a silly argument, but they're going to turn this into racism, xenophobia, all those terms that get thrown at Republicans whenever we try to stand up for the Constitution.
And it's interesting, and I hadn't thought about this, but she cites the Illinois Constitution, Article 3, Section 1, that school board races are non-state elections. Therefore, in her opinion, they are not subject to a citizenship requirement. It's unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And Illinois is not alone. I believe in don't necessarily quote me on this, but there are over 16 actually, 16 cities across the country in California, Maryland, New York, and Vermont that allow illegal aliens to vote in certain elections, including school board elections. And so obviously this state senator is trying to use that model that's been used in those other states to ram this through. But Scott, the timing is interesting because on the exact same day that this Democratic state senator introduces this legislation proposing that illegal aliens vote in school board elections, what does Governor Pritzker do during a press conference? He goes on the attack.
Of course he does.
Against who? Against conservative grassroots organizations like Awake Illinois and others. And so, Scott, Pritzker's not stupid.
No.
And I think this was a coordinated attack that the state senator and Pritzker and his office had planned. Because this is not accidental. And if any of you missed the quote from J.B. Pritzker during a press conference, he not only went after conservative grassroots groups like Awake Illinois, he also went after conservative school board candidates. And he says, and I quote, "There are organizations that are anti-LGBTQ, that are racist, that are anti-Muslim, that are supporting candidates for these local school boards, and they're trying to take over at a local level and build up candidates at the local level that they can then run for the state legislature." But at the same time, Pritzker's out there at a press conference talking about there are racist, anti-Muslim groups. State Senator Villanueva is introducing legislation to allow illegal aliens to vote in school board races. I'm not surprised by this.
No, it sounds scripted.
It sounds incredibly scripted. And, the sad part, Scott, is there's nothing that Republicans can do about this.
Well, and that's the sad part is we've seen with very recently with the assault weapons ban that the General Assembly in Springfield will shove through anything clearly unconstitutional. They'll just shove it right through because I guess their strategy is they're going to force us to have to sue them every single step of the way to preserve our Constitution.